Everyone. Very pleased to see you all here with me today. There's a last session of the day. We've made it. And this presentation is called The New Schoolhouse, the LMS in a Post-COVID World. This is my most controversial presentation of the day. Maybe the most controversial presentation I've ever given. So prepare yourself for me to say outlandish things and make absolute statements where I probably should hedge what I say and acknowledge that there's a gray area. So with that disclaimer, I am going to make some maybe outrageous statements, but know that I do believe there's room for discussion here on these things. So let me share my screen with you guys, and I'll show you how to get started in this presentation. So here we go. So what I need for you to do is head over to the New Schoolhouse LMS in a post-COVID world in Moodle. And there is a woo clap activity right here. So I want you to click on that, and that will open up woo clap for you. I'm going to go ahead and kick off this presentation. So how to participate. You should just be able to click right into it from Moodle, and you should be logged in already. If not, or if you want to participate on a phone or some other device, you can go to wooclap.com/ttzkuz, or you could text the text string TTZKUZ to 855-910-9662, or you could scan that QR code that's up there to get into this meeting here. So I'm going to give everybody a chance just to filter in there, and we've got, looks like 12 so far. So we got some other folks that need to jump in because this is going to be a highly interactive presentation. I'm going to be asking you to do stuff constantly, pretty much throughout this presentation. So it looks like we got some chats here. Thanks, Annette. I appreciate that. Mr. Vaughn is right. Yeah, great. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and roll through this. If you're coming in late or something, you can always go to Moodle. Once again, the New Schoolhouse activity right here in Moodle. If you click on that, it should bring you right into my woo clap. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Are there LMSs at the schools you are familiar with? So not just the schools that you work at, but the schools maybe where your children go, or where friends go, or maybe where you're a student. So go ahead and respond to this question here. So you can see this is ticking up in real time. I'm seeing people participating and everything, so that's all good. And it looks like most folks are somewhere in the middle here. Either most schools have an LMS or a few schools have an LMS. Only one vote so far for every school has an LMS. So what we're seeing here is that there is a scattered adoption of the learning management system amongst schools, which seems kind of a crazy thing, right? Like it's a learning management system. If you're a school, and especially during the pandemic, it would make sense that you have an LMS, but actually that's not the case. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And we're going to kind of explore that a little bit in this presentation. So I want you to type a word that describes how your district, institution, or colleagues feel about the LMS. So words that come to mind that you've heard if you've been talking at the water cooler, or you've been, oh no, do we have a, good, keep it up. So I experienced a lot of this at Carroll when I was the instructional technologist and Moodle administrator, both before and after the pandemic with regard to the LMS. It's really, you see a lot of things here like not intuitive. It's not education. Wow, no learning, complex, confusing, necessary evil, uncertainty, not what I want. Like this is, you definitely cumbersome. Like I had teachers tell me over and over again, I am technologically illiterate. Okay. Now, I can't imagine talking to a professor who was actually illiterate, right? Like if I knew someone that is like, I'm illiterate, it would not be something that I would be proud. In fact, I would probably go learn how to read, you know? So the idea that technological illiteracy is a badge of honor is, I think, something that's kind of dead now, because I had a lot of these folks come to me at the pandemic and say, well, I don't have a choice now, so I have to use it. And that's the world that we're in. You absolutely have to, because it's a fundamental expectation that students have. And especially post-pandemic, there's no more cover to say, you know, oh, well, I just don't use technology. That's not an option anymore. But really, I want to highlight mixed more than anything, because there are a lot of folks who I work with that say they feel empowered. A lot of people feel empowered too. So it's not an either or. Both of these things are going on at the same time. And, you know, we have to deal with that reality. So let's see, where's my slides? I need to get to my presentation. That's what I want to do. Oh, okay, great. Sorry, let me catch up. The New Schoolhouse. Look at my pretty title slide, everybody. Isn't it great? Okay, there, we've been through that one. Where's my next slide? Come on, slide. So we started out with what I would call the industrial schoolhouse, and I'm sure everybody has seen this. It's the, you know, the bell rings at this time, the students come and they go. It's like working in a factory. Everybody's in straight rows. Students are viewed primarily as receptacles for information. You fill them up and then they spit it out on the test, and that's the industrial model. Now, lately, even before the pandemic, we had been moving away from the industrial schoolhouse to what I would call the collaborative schoolhouse. We're building rooms with round tables where students are sitting together. The teacher is going from sage on the stage to guide on the side, right? There's this sort of transition where we want students to be actively engaged in doing things rather than just listening to things. So, you know, we have these two models, the collaborative schoolhouse and the industrial schoolhouse. So let me ask you, what are the differences here between the collaborative schoolhouse and the industrial schoolhouse? Oh, is this a vote? Hold on. Results list, that's what I want. All right, so go ahead and type in just a quick sentence or two. What are the differences for you between the industrial schoolhouse and the collaborative schoolhouse? Also, I would invite anyone to this is fully open-ended, so I'd invite anybody to add to these comments. So if your comments like, oh, this is, you know, doesn't make any sense or whatever, put that in there too. All right, one is teacher-centered, one is learner-centered. Good. Learning dynamics. The collaborative picture has students in it. That's really significant, right? The students are an important part of this, of the collaborative schoolhouse. They are centered in it, right? Fun collaborative learning. What's the difference here? Perspective, right? The perspective of the teacher and the perspective of the students. Do the students have agency? Do they not? What's going on there? So Now, it doesn't matter whether you're into the collaborative schoolhouse or you're into the industrial schoolhouse, because it got replaced by the digital schoolhouse. All right. Doesn't matter. Too bad. So sad. You're out of the building now. Doesn't matter if you got tables in your room. It doesn't matter if you've got all desks. Doesn't matter if you have a chalkboard or a smart board or 10 screens or no screens. Like, too bad. That's over. It's gone. Got replaced by the digital schoolhouse, and it had to do that. All right. So I spoke with an anonymous administrator, more than one, actually. I would say that this is a composite statement that I heard from colleagues who are school administrators, and it's approximately 62% verbatim. Okay. I don't know how I came up with that number. I just made it up, but I want to say, like, this is not one person in particular. This is sort of like a composite of all the administrators that I talked to during the pandemic. And there were a lot of them. I have a lot of friends who are administrators, and like I value my relationships with them. So this is essentially what was said. When I walk through my school, I see teachers doing different things in different classrooms. I'm not going to force them all to use Moodle because it's not my business to tell them how to teach. They're capable professionals, and I want them to be free to use the best tool for what they need to do. Okay. This is a sentiment that was, like I said, not just one, but several folks that I talked to about this. Naturally, I'm a Moodle evangelist, so I'm out there, you know, like telling people to use Moodle. And this is a response I got. So I want you to vote whether or not you agree with this sentiment. Now, I want to say that, yes, there is room to have a gray area, but in this case, I'm forcing you to agree or to disagree because I'm being cruel and binary. Good. So as this is going in, I want somebody to pipe up. What is good about this statement? So somebody that voted yes, if you're willing to out yourself and tell us what is good about this statement, I'd like to hear that. I'm also going to ask somebody who voted no to tell me what's bad about the statement, because as with everything, it's not all good or all bad. Kent. All right, Kent, unmute yourself and speak up.
What do you want me to say? Not everybody can teach certain ways. You go through teaching school and you find your electives. I taught business for 25 years. It's a whole lot different teaching shop, a whole lot different to teaching English and math. All my students wanted to be in my room. You teach math, half the students don't want to be there. It's not the same technique to teach business as it is math, as you can't put everybody in the same LMS or the same system and say, hey, teach your subject matter. The principal, the administrator is not the master of the subject. They are supposed to be hiring masters. That's what they hired me to do. I should be in charge of the way I instruct the students.
Absolutely. I agree with that sentiment 100%. So let's find somebody that said no. Who wants to take up the no here?
I'll take it.
All right.
It is absolutely his job. That is what he was hired to do. He was hired to find teachers to teach the things that need to be taught. And if he says you're going to put stuff in Moodle, then that's what they need to do. They can always work what they do around using the LMS. Doesn't have to be everybody does the same thing.
So
the LMS does not force you to teach one way or another. It provides you tools. And being told you will find tools is not the same as not giving somebody opportunities to be themselves.
I want to hold both of these things at once, okay? Like the idea that an administrator should force teachers to teach a certain way or use a certain tool, that the teacher needs that freedom, that academic freedom to do what they want to do in their classroom. The administrator also still has a responsibility to make decisions about systems level stuff, right? So this struggle, I think, is interesting, and it's at the crux of the reason that I made this presentation. Like I came to this from these discussions. I'm like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a non-binary way to think about this. So here's the thing about the schoolhouse. You can have a schoolhouse and you can have some rooms that are industrial and you can have some rooms that are collaborative, right? Just because they're all housed within the same place doesn't mean that the same thing happens in every room. And now I said I'm going to get controversial, so I'm starting to get controversial here. And I want to throw this out there as like, I'm not saying that anybody's right or anybody's wrong. I'm just trying to start a really interesting conversation that I've been struggling with here. So I'm going to try and make this really controversial set of statements, and then, you know, but without saying like, I am correct and everybody has to do exactly what I say, right? So I'm going to try and ride that line. I might fail, and you guys can tar and feather me if I do. So in this composite administrator opinion model, the idea is that Moodle is going to replace what is happening in these classrooms, right? That Moodle is going to come in, or the LMS, whether it's Canvas or Schoology or D2L. This isn't just restricted to Moodle. This is to any LMS, right? But I don't see it this way. To me, Moodle is not what's happening in the classroom. Moodle is the classroom itself, okay? So like the idea that Moodle determines how you teach is like saying the classroom determines how you teach. Now, there's some truth to that too, because if you have a classroom that's built to be collaborative, you are going to necessarily do more collaborative things. But in the K-12 environment, most teachers have a pretty good bit of latitude over how they put their classroom together, as they should. But all those classrooms are in the same building. Now, let's see if we agree with this statement. I'm not going to force my teachers to all use the school building because it's not my business to tell them how to teach. So I just replaced Moodle with the words the school building in this statement. And I'm interested and a bit nervous to see how you vote, whether or not you agree with this statement. All right, this is good. This is good stuff. I like that there is not uniformity here. I don't believe in uniformity necessarily, and so like I'm glad that we have diverse sets of opinions. So I want, yeah, go ahead.
Can you define school building for me?
The physical brick and mortar building in which the classrooms exist. So would you agree or disagree that teachers ought to have to come to the school building to teach if they don't want to? So I think there's some nuance here. Does anybody that answered yes want to like clarify maybe what they mean by that? I know this is tough and edgy, so we're all like on the same team here, so don't feel afraid.
I'll jump in as a yes, because
Okay,
I did
Annette.
say. So I'm looking at it from a dual side. One, we saw, and yes, we had probably a 50-50 split over the past whatever months. Some children, some teachers, this virtual environment rocked for them. I had parents tell me that their kiddos, who were like fast tracking to dropping out, this hit it right on the head. We also have teachers that, why aren't we looking at a model where we've got a better balance between work and family, work and your community engagement? A virtual environment does that, maybe a job share. Maybe I want to be in the classroom, but you, Ryan, as my co-teacher, don't. So we've got this job share. Then the other aspect I look at it is, holy cats, what an opportunity for actual transformational learning to take place. So maybe I'm a total Moodler and my kiddos are Moodlers, but maybe I'm doing, I mean, my day in the classroom is a long time. I'm a really old person, but I had the opportunity in my early elementary career, I've taught every grade K-12, we could take a lot of field trips and we could actually physically apply everything we were learning in the classroom. Well, I can kind of do that in this environment a little bit easier than if I'm in that brick and mortar building. I can also physically maybe have the kids go out and explore. So that's a short version of my brain spinning. So that's my answer.
That's great. Thank you for jumping in. So Monica asked the question, does that mean it would be an option to only teach distantly? So that's not what I had in mind when I first asked this question. And I kind of want to explain where I was on this. So I'm imagining that you say to your teachers, okay, I don't want to constrain you to this classroom that's in this building. So, you know, you can teach anywhere you want to. Like maybe one teacher chooses a tree house and someone's got a caravan and then someone sets up a tent somewhere across town. And then there's somebody has it like, would you have students going to very different places if you're all teaching physically, right? If you're in the building and there is no pandemic and there's no distance option, would it be okay to have teachers in different places that aren't the same school building? To me, from my perspective, that's kind of what it's like if you don't have an LMS, is that if one teacher's on Class Dojo and then another teacher's on Seesaw and then another teacher's on this and another teacher's on that, you have students access trouble because they're having to go to a bunch of different places. They have a bunch of different passwords. Their parents can't remember their passwords. And when they reset the password, it goes to the student email, which maybe they don't have access to that easily either. So in my mind, this is kind of what I was thinking about, is having teachers in a whole bunch of different platforms means that the students have to go a whole bunch of different places. So hang with me because it's not as absolute as it sounds like. Oh, here we go. This is 100% verbatim. Microsoft Teams is our LMS. Your turn. Is Microsoft Teams an LMS? You could substitute Microsoft Teams with Google Classroom too, as far as I'm concerned. Is Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, is this an LMS? Now, the LMS dorks in the room are like, absolutely no way is Microsoft Teams an LMS, right? There's a lot of specific functionality that is in an LMS, it's not in Microsoft Teams. So let me sort of put it this way. This is me when I hear somebody say that Teams or Google Suite is our LMS, because I'm an LMS dork, all right? So I want to acknowledge that. But in my mind, there's 4 key systems that any school has to have to really succeed. First of all, there's the student information system, which is like PowerSchool, Banner, Colleague. That keeps students' grades for long periods of time. It maintains their contacts with their parents. It is the like HR system of a school, right? And then there's a productivity suite. G Suite or Teams or Office 365, I guess, is what it would really be, which operates within Teams, right? A place to make spreadsheets, to do word processing, to make presentations, to those sorts of things. A productivity suite is absolutely necessary, and all the students and teachers need to have. Oh, Melanie, thank you for Infinite Campus and Go. Yeah. Then there's another system, the video conferencing system. This could be Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Zoom. Big Blue Button is an open source version. Jitsi is another one that's focused on privacy in ways that Teams, Meet, and Zoom aren't. And then finally, the learning management system, Moodle, D2L, Schoology, Canvas, Blackboard, etc. Those are actual learning management systems that are built for learning management in the way that I understand it as someone who's like a practitioner of LMSs. So here's the deal. It's not that you can't use other stuff. It's just that it needs to be easily accessible through the LMS, right? So there's one place where you log in, just like we logged into this Moodle, but Moodle passed us over to WooClap. We're working in WooClap right now. Just because we're in Moodle doesn't mean I can't use WooClap as well. Just because we're in Moodle doesn't mean we can't use Zoom. We're also using Zoom right now. Just because we're using Moodle doesn't mean we can't also use G Suite. We could be in a document right now working together. But if it's set up properly, the LMS is going to make it a lot easier for your students to access all those diverse platforms rather than having them go to, okay, kids, I need you to type in, wooclap dot whatever / KWZX. Just a link straight out of the Moodle like we had for this is ideal for students and especially for parents. The people who I think had the worst time, and now I'm a parent of a 9 and a 12-year-old, and I have a lot of parent friends, and talking to them through the pandemic, I will tell you, they were like pulling their hair out. Like I had a parent friend call me telling me that they couldn't figure out how to get into their kids' learning, and they were so stressed out and they were so tired, and the kids had been screaming all day, and like it was a bad deal. So I mean, they're like, do you know how to do this? Because you're supposed to be Mr. Ed Tech guy, right? So like help me figure this out. So it dawned on me that like, yeah, the LMS is a powerful tool, but it should not replace great creative technologically engaged teaching with the stuff that's built into the LMS. If you want to use WooClap, plug it in. If you want to use Flipgrid, plug it in. If you want to use Seesaw, plug it in. If you want to use VoiceThread, plug it in. If you want to use whatever, flibbity-flibbity-doo, like, so Dan Case is a master of coming up with like the most hottest, newest technology platform. And he's always coming around, hey, have you heard of ScriptJack? And I'm like, no, what's ScriptJack? And he's like, oh man, it's going to change education forever. And like, it's cool, but it's not like it's going to replace the LMS. It's something you want to plug in and some teacher might use. Or like Pearson and Cengage and these companies make these proprietary systems. A really good one is Alex. It's about chemistry, and it gets you, it like levels you up. It's like this whole adaptive thing. But we plugged it into Moodle so that students who use it from Carroll, for instance, click out of their course and go straight into it. And it passes grades back to Moodle. Then you can take those grades out of Moodle and send them into PowerSchool, so that the LMS is like the hub that connects us to everything else, right? So like you walk to one building and there's all these classrooms in it, and there's all a bunch of diverse stuff happening in the classrooms. But at the end of the day, every teacher still has basically the same shape and size of classroom. That's what I'm suggesting the LMS ought to be in this new post-COVID world, right? All right, so that is it. I did that a lot quicker than I expected to. So I'd like to open us up to open discussion. So go ahead and throw comments or questions in here, or unmute yourself and speak up. I'll be happy to take questions and comments, and if you need to tell me to take a hike, that's fine too. But this is my controversial presentation on what an LMS is and why it should be central to every school's technology strategy. Funny, Melanie. Well, dang.
We'll
Gotta
run-
have the instructional frame. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Okay, this is Annette. Have you read, oh, for the love of Pete, I just went right at. There we go. The End of Average.
No, I haven't.
Great book.
Oh, isn't it fabulous?
Todd, Todd, what's that guy's name? Todd something.
Oh, Todd Rose. So basically, without giving, oh, I don't know. There we go. Oh, never mind. We got that stupid screen for the office. It won't show it. So basically what Rose is saying, that from 1840 to today, unfortunately, the conception of what is now called the Taylorist machine. So in 1840, this dude creates the term average, which meant, hey, you're pretty awesome. You know, you fall within the average. It means you are like spot on.
You're competent.
From there forward, it became an icky term. And then other mathematical terms were added to it. So where today, where we have the phrase, education in the US is broken, in all honesty, it's functioning exactly as those who bastardized Ketterle's creation of average saw it. And that means that if you are average, you're the minions. You're the worker bees. And the education system is designed that minions will not rise above. I'm special ed, and I'll attest to that. You know, we could go on for, you know, hours, but so what Todd Rose tells us is that the system isn't broken. It is, unfortunately, and it's everywhere. It doesn't matter if you work in the Ford plant and you produce cars, or you work at McDonald's. Taylorist machine is how the world functions. And in education, Rose tells us that you have to find a way, you have to teach children how to work around the system to be successful. Because everybody should have an opportunity to rise above minion status.
I'm definitely reading that. The one, yeah.
So with that in mind, how are the wheels turning on your thoughts on the new school? Do you see the standard classroom post-COVID as the best place for us to kick the system in the backside for these kids to rise above and beyond it? Or do you see something where they've got that ability to be more inventive and creative, to bring back what we deliberately killed by third grade? And that's that creative mind. Do you see an LMS format which we can add those creative things daily? Do you see that as our better option?
No, I don't see that. The LMS is as neutral as the room, right?
Okay.
So I would say, yes, I see a way to create that in an LMS, just the same way I'd say I'd be able to create that in a classroom, because it depends on the instructional design and the will of the teacher, because the teacher is the most important. Well, okay, so hold on. The students are the most important thing in the classroom. The teacher is the most important thing that designs what happens in the classroom, right? So, you know, I see there's a comment here. You have people that have taught for 25 years one way. You can't expect them to be automatically successful with remote learning. I wouldn't say they should be automatically successful, but I would say that they have the benefit of those 25 years of experience. Just like they can design a great classroom experience, they can design a great LMS experience. Now, something that is important, like the people who say they can only teach hands-on, like shop and physical therapy, art, and those sorts of things, is the hardest thing to do at a distance. But I want to show one suggestion, and again, I want to make sure that I'm not coming off as sounding like I'm, Mr. Know-it-all and everything, because I don't believe that. But I do want to give an example of how you might be able to do something like that using the Moodle forum. And granted, Moodle's not the only one that can do this. There's, LMS is an LMS is an LMS in some ways. So I'm gonna just call this shop class. Post a vid here of you building the bridge. So that was always my favorite one in shop class. You build a bridge and then break it, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and save and display this one. So now I'll add a new discussion topic. I'm gonna click this little camera right here, and I'm gonna say start recording. Okay, there we are. Here I'm over here. Okay, so I'm gonna build a bridge, but really I'm just gonna pour this LaCroix into this nice MtMoot cup that I have. And so that's me building a bridge, right? So now I attach recording to this post here, and once it uploads and everything, what we're going to get is a threaded discussion with videos. So maybe the shop teacher comes in and creates one of these videos demonstrating how to build the bridge, and then here I'll say my bridge, and then students come in and say, so this is what they see when they come in. They see, this video of you building a bridge, then they get to reply, and I have to click advanced in this scenario. And then they can record a video of their own, right? So in that way, you create a thread with a bunch of videos of students doing physical things, even though they can't physically be together. I don't think this should replace in-person learning, okay? No, absolutely not. I am very much into in-person learning. I want students beside each other, talking to their teachers, physically being there. But when we can't do that, this is a decent substitute for what would happen in a shop class, right? And again, this is where instructional coaching is critical. There's no way that a teacher should be able to figure out to do this on their own. When you've been teaching shop class for 25 years and all of a sudden at the drop of a hat, you have to go at a distance, you need support, like for real support, like really sustained support from people that are like positive and encouraging and that you can trust, right? So this is a great, instructional coaching, very critical. Okay, so I've talked for a long time. Does anybody want to respond to that? You can throw another comment in here, or you can put it in the chat. Art teachers and music teachers did really cool. I saw that too.
I'm going to disagree with Kent on that one. I think it's very situational, Kent, as far as remote learning not equaling or coming close to face-to-face. I agree with you for certain circumstances. Like I watched this whole last year watching kindergarten through second grade teachers attempt to teach early reading skills online. And in that circumstance, I can say without a doubt that is something that needs to be accomplished face-to-face. There, you can attempt to do that. And those folks, they were heroic, and they did everything that they could do to make sure that those students were getting the best things that they could get out of that. And they found ways around that I never would have thought of. And those people they are some gifted folks. And then that happened at all levels. But for that particular situation, I have to say, it's like, I look at that and I'm like, that needs to be face-to-face. It should be face-to-face in just a few rare circumstances that's not going to be the best option. But I also think that there are a lot of options where when you have that online experience, for some learners, it lets them interact with each other and with content in a way that they don't do in person. You have some learners who are differently abled who they would never speak up in class. They have fantastic opinions and super creative things to say, but when they're sitting in a classroom of 25 other students, they're never going to share those things. They're going to sit there and those things are going to stay inside. If you flip them into a forum in Moodle, you can pull out and activate some of those things that they wouldn't show up otherwise. So I think it's very situational. I agree that you have room for both of these things. You need face-to-face interaction, but I also think there's a lot of learners who really benefit from that.
I watched my 9-year-old daughter iterate her Flipgrid videos. So like Flipgrid is a platform where it works a lot like what I just demonstrated in that forum, where you have a video and then people respond to your video. It's like a video thread, right? And you can add little stickers and reactions and stuff. But my daughter, like, she got her iPad and she set it up and she made sure the background was nice, and she like had her shirt on and like, you know, her special shirt or princess crown or something. And then she like would write some things down and she'd record and watch it and then be like, no, maybe that's not right. And like re-record. And could you imagine like doing that in a classroom? Like the opportunity for those kids, like you said, that are differently abled or like just wanna iterate a little bit before they post it. Like I was watching her do this, just like, this is awesome. Like I think it's so cool that she had the opportunity. Now, again, yeah. It's I agree with you, Kent. It's not a race. Like, yeah. So anyway, this was the crux of what I was trying to get at. So I feel really good about this presentation now that we're all in here. So I want to address this real quickly. Who would you talk to about making sure all schools are working with an LMS? Individual teachers, school zone, the district school board. You know, really, probably the school level is a good place to go, because like, I don't know, actually Gary probably is better suited to answer this question than me, right? Because you're actually in this position in schools, right?
Yeah, you probably want to talk to, I wouldn't start with your school board. I would start with your technology department or your administrators. That's the best place to start with that conversation for sure. You know, just to get an answer from that. And I'm gonna part ways from Ryan a little bit in terms of what is an LMS and whether or not Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams constitute an LMS. And actually, maybe I'm not parting ways in as much as I agree those things are probably not LMSs per se, but I do think in your slide that you had earlier where you showed those 4 different interactive systems, that I think that the needs of your learners vary by level, right? So the reality is that you probably have some learners, particularly if you're looking at like K5, K4 in there, who they don't necessarily need a full featured LMS. What they need is a communication platform and a unified area to find all that stuff. So, you know, going into a full featured LMS is probably just going to add complexity and confusion that you probably don't need. So you kind of have to tier it a little bit, but keeping it as simple as possible. That was one of the things that we heard over and over and over again is you have to make this simple so that students and parents can find what they need to find. And it's fantastic that we're coming back to a point where we at least have the ability to be both in person and online, so that we can overcome some of those communication things that really were a challenge when you're only virtual. But yeah, I would start with your administrator, and then absent that, I would start with your tech department. Those are good places to launch your conversation about LMSs.
So, and I think that the post-COVID schoolhouse includes both the physical schoolhouse and the digital schoolhouse, whatever that looks like in a district. Like, it is now a reality and an expectation to say, I have materials that are available online. I might have you access those materials from the classroom, you know, using a device of some sort. I might have you working on something in the classroom on your computer that then you take it home and finish working on it at home, so that the learning activities kind of flow back and forth between the physical and digital space. Because that's the way we work anymore. And that's the way we're going to continue to work, where we have digital stuff that we share with each other and work on together, but also have physical meetings, or I guess video conferences. So yeah, I don't think I have all the answers here. I wanted to throw this stuff out against the wall and just see what people thought about it. And so I really appreciate you guys coming in and kicking in. Oh yeah, attendance problems because students could access material online. Sure, absolutely. But that doesn't, yeah, just because the material's online doesn't mean you can fully learn online, I think. But yeah. Any last comments here before I kick this down? Oh, transformational learning opportunities at all grades levels. Yes, yeah. How do you define attendance online? Well, I would guess by completing the things related to the videos, right? You can't just have them watch a video. You have to do something with that, which is where like H5P comes in, and the lesson module and the quiz module, if you're inserting content in there. It's not just watching the video, it's watching the video and doing something with it that constitutes attendance online as far as I'm concerned. Mike, that comment, attendance versus were all students in attendance pre-COVID engaged? Great question. Not unless you intentionally do something with them, right? Like, that's why, that's why I'm using WooClap here, is to try and keep you engaged, so people have things to put in, you vote on things, you vote on this. I will tell you, having been in professional development for educators for several years, I presented at conference, I've presented at like UB Tech and, the NCCE and, all these other like conferences, that Montana Ed Camps I've presented at. And the educators are the absolute worst for coming in. They're like, I remember this one time, this actually happened. Somebody said, I was making this case for technology in the classroom, right? Because I'm that's what I do. I'm pushing the envelope here, and I'm like, your students should have their cell phones in classrooms. That's just what I believe. And somebody was like, well, how do you keep students from like texting each other or like not paying attention because they've got phones? And I was like, well, what you need to do is try and leverage that device so that, and before I was even, they were on their phone right after they had asked that question, right? But if you've sort of planned to hijack their phone, like with WooClap or Nearpod was what I was using at the time, then you can actually take over their screen and like, engage them that way too. So, oh yes. Oh yeah. Eric mentioned that TED Ed is a real easy way to have videos and engagement. So everybody, go look at TED Ed. It's one of those things that I think you should plug into Moodle so students access it through Moodle, but just saying. But Dan asked, given this discussion, are you planning to have 2022 in person? Absolutely, yes. We love having, I don't think that online is a substitute for being in person. And I hope that this presentation hasn't given anyone that impression. COVID forced us online. We didn't choose to go online because we thought it was better. I value human relationships and seeing people face to face. And so, yes, we were planning on having 2022 in person. But if things go haywire and the new variant or vaccines don't work or something, we will still have it online just like we have this year and last year. But we are hoping to have it. Oh, but will we do both? We can't not, I think now. We can't not give people an online attendance option, just like you can't not use an LMS if you're a teacher, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's my big controversial statement. Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle's a really good one. Thank you, Annette. That's and Edpuzzle is really great because it gives students agency of when to go forward and backwards and stuff. So, all right. Well, time is up. Thank you all very much for participating in this conversation. I learned a lot, and I was really happy to hear what you guys had to say, because I've been in my own little bubble, like thinking this stuff, and it's really good to get with educators to hash it out a bit. All right. Thanks, everybody. I will see you in the Moot party tonight. Come to it. It's totally worth it. We're going to be playing games, and it's going to be great. All right. Bye, everybody.